It would seem the New York Times is conceding the president is a meme king. I'm being somewhat facetious. I'm joking, but it's hilarious to me that this story exists. It's called "All the President's Memes," and there's an illustration of a bunch of brains that are lit up. I don't know what that's trying to say. Maybe it's like the sharing of an idea. But we've come to a point in our existence where journalists are pumping out fake news. No one cares about the safety and security of their sources. People are forming lynch mobs to go after kids who didn't do anything. And the New York Times is writing stories about how the president pumps out memes. Welcome to 2019. I never thought we'd be here because when I grew up, I always looked at adults as more serious. And at a certain point in my life, I realized, wow, I'm an adult now, and there's no one else who has the answers, right? It's the craziest thing. When I was younger, there was always someone I could ask a question to. I could say, hey, how does X happen? My dad, for instance. Dad, how does this work? Can you tell me? How does that work? Can you tell me? And then at a certain point, I said, Dad, how does this work? And he said, I don't know. And I was like, oh, man, I guess the question's too adult. Now I'm in a position where I'm the adult, and people are asking me questions. And I know things many people don't. And it's a weird position to be in, right? When you come to this realization. I never thought I'd be in a world where the media has become completely immature, pumps out nonsense, and the president posts memes, much to the fanfare of his base and to the chagrin of his opponents. But let's see what the New York Times has to say about Mr. Trump as the king of memes. On the 12th day of the federal government shutdown, the 45th president of the United States of America posted a meme on his Instagram account. An image of his half-glowering, half-smirking visage hovering gigantically above the southwestern border, dwarfing the picture's centerpiece. A rendering of his signature campaign promise, and in familiar font, some explanatory text. The wall is coming. It's an image that makes you think that it's from HBO's Game of Thrones. Sort of. And then makes you think about the unique privileges and burdens of living in this moment of history. Spot on, New York Times. What a glorious time that the president gets his message across by posting memes. Didn't Trump post a meme? I don't know. I think it was Trump that posted the CNN meme where it's him in WWE beating up a guy, but the guy's head is just an image of the CNN logo, and then CNN threatened to dox the guy. Welcome to the 45th presidency of the United States. We are living in idiocracy, and I believe the social fabric is dissolving, and the end is nigh. I'm being somewhat facetious, but yeah, I think things are getting really, really bad. Let's read on. There are so many unusual aspects of Donald Trump's presidency that his willingness to communicate with the public through internet memes is often overshadowed. But how relatable, isn't it? Typically, he retweets images made by his most enthusiastic backers. In November, he shared one of the Clintons, Barack Obama, Huma Abedin, Robert Mueller, his own deputy attorney, General Rod Rosenstein, and others, all locked up in a prison cell together. But the wall meme appears to be a White House original. It is also the second Game of Thrones meme the president has shared in the last 2 months. He does this sort of thing so often that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer recently felt compelled to tweet like an exasperated high school teacher, "Enough with the memes." No, the memes aren't going to stop. Everything is going crazy, and what a glorious timeline. Glorious, and I mean that in a somewhat tongue-in-cheek sense. Like, man, it's all over, isn't it? It's all over. I'm gonna build a van. I'm going to stock it full of important equipment and water, and I'm going to build a Faraday cage to protect me from EMPs, and I'm going to go bunker down in the woods and just sit there rocking back and forth, waiting for the world to end. Because this is how could this be real? How could this be the timeline we're in, right? Maybe everyone always felt like this, you know? I'm only one person with only one life experience. Maybe everybody feels that way, that things are crazy when they're older. But then again, it's the airport in Omaha, and an old guy said to me, "I've never seen it this bad." And he said he lived through the civil rights era, and I was like, uh-oh, what's going on? Is the simulation ending? In current usage, meme refers most often to an image with text overlay. Designed for distribution online, they're like the bumper stickers of the digital realm, in that any one concept can be endlessly remixed to convey just about any sort of sentiment. Calvin can pee on anything, right? So the sticker people put in their cars of Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes urinating on stuff. What began more than a decade ago as a fun way to imagine how cats might talk has evolved into a surprisingly fertile mode of political communication. The online database Know Your Meme has confirmed the existence of some 4,066 successful memes in the wild, including newcomers like Big Chungus. It's an old story. Or they were late to the story. A fake series of video games starring an obese rabbit and classics like Doge, which featured a Shiba Inu speaking broken English. The actual number is certainly much higher. You might find this very silly, and you wouldn't be wrong. But keep in mind, the president posts them. All of this represents a long fall from the meme's origins. The word was coined by the British ethologist Richard Dawkins in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene, as a way to conceptualize the transmission of culture in biological terms. For Dawkins, a meme shortened from the Greek meme, an imitated thing, was a unit of culture, a building block of our mental architecture. Just as genes propagate themselves in the gene pool by leaping from body to body via sperms or eggs, Dawkins wrote memes propagate themselves in the meme pool by leaping from brain to brain. They could be as small and short-lived as a tune or catchphrase, he explained, or as large and consequential as God and eternal damnation. You know what's really fascinating about how memes function today? There was a period on the internet where memes were, someone would take like a Velociraptor, right? You're familiar with Velociraptor? It's a raptor going like this, thinking, and then someone posts essentially like a shower thought. Hey, if this is true, how is this a thing? Then you had the awkward guy at the party who's standing, like sudden realization guy at a party. He's like surrounded by all these people and he's like, whoa, and he has an epiphany. People would take those images and then put a sentence on top and on the bottom. There were other ones. There was like the misunderstood, the well-intentioned black man or something, where the top phrase sounds stereotypically racist, but then the bottom adds more context, making him seem like he's an upstanding, not stereotypically racist person, or they're not, I don't know how to explain it. But the idea of memes changed, where they once were just kind of like, hey, do you guys ever experience a thing I experience? And people were like, I've experienced that too. Upvote. They've now become condensed information packets. Build the wall. What is Trump saying when he says build the wall? He's not saying literally build a wall, right? The anti-Trump people hear what Trump says and they think literally a gigantic 30-foot wall. And certainly Trump supporters will make more memes about the wall. But when Trump says something like that, he's actually talking about a greater idea of security, border security, and reducing illegal immigration. When he yells that, there's a bigger message behind that. It's basically like a compressed file. Memes have evolved to the point of compression, like a zip file. When Trump calls Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas, he's not insulting her with that word. He's presenting an idea about her that goes far and wide, right? That's why Trump brands people. He is memeing them and making it easy to condense an idea to prep an audience before he presents something further. So when he's talking about Marco Rubio and he says, little Marco, before anything is done, he has created a frame in your mind. By saying little Marco, you have now pictured Marco Rubio as weak and inexperienced. He said to you, Marco Rubio is weak and inexperienced, and based on that information, I'd like you to listen to my next point. All by saying little Marco. Lion Ted. He is memeing people. He presents an idea that smears them before anything else can be done. Memes are incredible. It's absolutely incredible. When he says Pocahontas, he's not saying, she's Native American. He's saying, I want you all to remember everything she's done throughout her history, where she misrepresented herself or was misrepresented by others as Native American. And now also remember that time she did that DNA test. He brings all of that information back with one word. Memes are ridiculously powerful. Gene Dawkins argued, do not aim to propagate a species. They seek only to propagate themselves. Memes, he believed, were similarly selfish. Dawkins spends most of his chapter on memetics fixating on religion, and because he has since become such an aggressively outspoken atheist. Reading the book today, it is easy to get the sense that he considers religion almost parasitic. The concept of God, he figured, endures because it offers a psychological salve to people, while eternal damnation survives because it is useful as a means of social control. Thus, both live on, copied from generation to generation, latching onto humanity and perpetuating themselves too effectively to be got rid of. Selection favors memes that exploit their cultural environment to their own advantage. People on the right often say that the left can't meme. I think from a certain context that's true. The idea is that most people associated with the right know how to produce a meme and frequently make them successful. The left doesn't. But what they're not understanding here is that the left is collectivist. The left does have massive collective memes. If we're talking about religion as a meme, the original context, then intersectionality is a massive collectivist meme. Essentially, it can be put this way. The right has millions of tiny memes that are funny and get shared around frequently and evolve rapidly. The rapid evolution of memes makes it harder for any one to become the most prominent, but they do evolve and they do advance and they do get carried forward. The left has one gigantic meme with the power of a million memes, intersectionality, and it carries from person to person as its core dogma and ideology. That's a collectivist issue. And that's why there are conservatives, people on the right who have religion, who share their religion, and that's why the left has now embraced it. It would seem like there is a hole in everyone's brain for collectivism, and it can be filled by anything. So imagine that hole in people's brains on the right is filled by millions of little memes, and on the left, it's one big meme. And there you have it. The left has their memes, massive ideological religion. The right, to a certain extent, has that ideology, but it's more on the back burner. More so, it's the little tiny memes that persist. Anyway, memes are interesting. Let's see how they wrap up the story. This incentive structure in which an easily distracted person says a bunch of stuff he kind of means to an assembled audience, slowly learning what generates a reaction and what doesn't, is familiar. It's like posting online. This is the process that nudged the wall ever closer to reality, despite the fact that it was only ever supposed to be a metaphor, a shorthand catchphrase. It is an idea with no real owner or creator, passed from person to person, from lectern to grandstand to TV and Twitter and back again, copying itself and growing and mutating until it became big, beautiful, and tipped with spikes forged from American steel. The border wall is, in the truest sense, a meme. An idea that persists not because it will benefit us, but simply because it thrives in our environment. It was so effective at doing whatever it did that couldn't be contained. Spilling out of the president's brain and spreading throughout our entire body politic, cooling and hardening like bacon grease until it finally brought everything to a standstill. And I hate to admit it, but that is a little funny. It is. It's hilarious. You gotta have a sense of humor about things, and realize that all of this insanity, while terrifying and bad, at a certain point you gotta laugh and you gotta figure it out. Anyway, I'm wiped. I gotta do equipment run. I'm gonna get out of here. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the main channel at 4 p.m. youtube.com/timcast.